We're back. What's wrong, Bill?
I've just had kind of a long week. I'm kind of stressed out right now. Nothing seems to really be going right for me. I'm kind of down in the dumps.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's too bad. But hey, look on the bright side.
Yeah?
Everything happens for a reason. Wah, wah.
Uh,
All right, well, let's
you
talk about this.
okay? Yeah. I understand. Like you hear this way too much. It gets thrown out a lot on Facebook. Anytime when somebody's struggling with something, anytime something bad happens, people like to think everything happens for a reason. Like anytime, I mean, it's basically saying that if something bad happens to you, it happened so that something better can happen to you, come to you later on, right? Because this is the best of all possible worlds, right?
All right.
Ain't that a load of crap?
Well, I mean, philosophically, it does have some kind of, sort of backing.
Really? How so? Prove me. Oh, Mr. Devil's Advocate. That's yeah. You play Devil's Advocate.
All right, well, we'll think of it this way. You remember when a couple weeks ago, we did the Neil deGrasse Tyson Most Amazing Fact.
Right.
And then not too long after that, we did the Alan Watts.
I think we actually did that in the other order.
Okay, maybe. But in either case, some of the philosophy or philosophical ideas that we were dealing with, they have this underlying notion that there is this ebb and flow to the universe.
Right.
Okay, and it's all, for back to the word, determined, and there's this cosmic orchestration that's going on, and so your troubles are merely a single string instrument in this amazing symphony.
Into this mass orchestra of the cosmos.
Yes, for lack of, well, yeah, that's a pretty stinking good analogy, if you ask me.
For the sake of empty rhetoric, yeah.
Yeah.
But I say that's a load of crap.
Okay, we'll get why, Bill.
Okay, well here's my problem with that. When people say that everything happens for a reason, it's presupposing an already determined effect. Okay, like by the law of cause and effect, everything that happens does have a cause which leads to its existence, right?
Yeah.
Like say I am sitting here right now because I signed up for this radio show and I walked down the stairs and I got here, right?
Principle of sufficient reason.
Exactly, right? But when people say everything happens for a reason, it's saying that it was already basically saying that like this is the cause of me signing up for this radio show. Like me being here right now is the reason I signed up for the radio show. Like say, what's a good example? I can't think of a good example right now. We'll say like for any kind of cause and effect. Okay, like, help me out.
Houses burning down. Genocide in Rwanda.
Okay, we'll say we'll use the Judas example. How about that? Okay, like Judas betrayed Jesus.
Sure.
So that he could be crucified on the cross.
Okay.
This is an example used to support the notion of everything happens for a reason, right?
No, all right. Sure.
Because like Judas betraying Jesus was a bad thing, right? But it was a necessary thing that had to happen in order for Jesus to be crucified and for all sins to be forgiven, right?
Well, if you're on the boat with Dan Brown.
What?
Oh, there's Dan Brown. You ever
Yeah.
Whole Book of Judas thing.
Anyway, right. That's the common notion, the common argument when people are talking about that everything happens for a reason.
Right.
But when you apply it to like everyday things, like saying that, say like I lose my job, say I lose my job and somebody tells me like, well, maybe that happens so something better can come along. And it's like saying that the something better that is coming along is the reason that I lost my job in the first place. Like me getting a better job later on in the future is what is causing me to lose my job right now.
Well, it's
and that's
that there's a final solution.
Right,
like
that there is an ultimate goal, that there is an ultimate solution to all of existence. There is an end goal to be reached for everything that happens.
Well, I can see problems with that.
Exactly, right?
So let's say, even going back.
That's assuming that like there is a one distinct objective meaning and or goal in life that is completely beyond you. It's completely beyond you as an individual, that there is some ultimate goal to be reached. And let's say even if I get fired from my job so that I can get a job better in the future, better job in the future, that's not the end of it. Because then why did I get that better job in the future? Or why didn't I just skip the losing my job in the first place and just jump straight to getting that better job? If that was the ultimate goal, then why was it necessary for me to lose my previous job in the first place?
Well, here's the thing. Here's a couple issues.
All right.
I'm going on both sides of the argument, I guess. You could bring in the notion of an ultimately powerful being, whether it be Spinozian, and it is this thing that is all powerful and is everything. That's kind of pantheism, panentheism, if you will.
Panentheism, yeah.
Or alternatively, it's a monotheistic Judeo-Christian God, and he's controlling everything.
Which is the omnipotent, omniscient, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-present being, right?
Right. And it could be determined by him or it. And that could be why it happens for a reason. So when you say it happens for a reason, it's the idea that people have that. For example, there was this guy who when I was going to church, there was a guy there who previously had gone to a different church, and then something happened, and he arrived at this church, and he liked it better because he met his wife there. I was like, well, it's
and you could
clear
say
that
that
there
like
was issues
that,
with the other church.
Yeah, you could say like
led me to
that was the reason you had all those issues with the old church.
Yes, because God directed him there. For that lack
Right,
of,
right.
or according to his
yeah,
thought.
divine intervention, divine determination.
Yeah.
Of your destiny. Okay, like this is all centering around the concept of destiny, which I say is crap.
Yeah, I would say so. Even under this this Christian or Judeo-Christian model, I still say yes, because you there is a element of free will and an element of self-determination under this.
Right. Like we can relate this to like what we were talking about before of a completely determined universe that's following Spinoza's idea of determinism. And
You gotta explain that, Bill. Gotta explain it.
okay, Spinoza's idea of determinism basically saying that help me out here. We're explaining that everything that happens necessarily. That all things that happen, all things that occur, necessarily had to occur that way.
Yeah.
In order for things to unfold as they do. That it was literally impossible for things to happen any other way other than the way they do. That nothing is contingent. All things are necessary.
Yes.
I reject that. I prefer, though not completely agree with Leibniz's idea on it, which is saying that things necessarily happen a certain way, but things are not necessary. They're not necessary. Things are certain because they are known by God that things will unfold as they do, but it's not necessary that they must unfold that way.
Yeah. No, so that's fair. Because again, Leibniz goes on this idea that there's again free will is his main backing. So
Right.
And then going back, so arguing for your point, even the notion that there is this cosmic symphony of stuff that's going on,
Right.
and that everything is determined, for lack of a better word.
That we do have this great all-knowing deity that is.
Well, even if you don't, even if it's just like, even if.
Well,
if
I
it is-
personally, I fail to see how you can rationalize that kind of belief without God.
Well, the symphony thing, the idea that your existence and your troubles.
At that point, you're just replacing the universe with God. It's the same notion, but you're just applying a different name to it.
Without omniscience or cognizance.
Okay.
Yes. So it's aesthetic is what it is.
Okay.
So when, for example, Neil deGrasse Tyson is talking about the universe and saying that our lives fit the fact that we are monkeys on a spinning bit of rock going around a superheated ball of gas and plasma, and that life is absurd. And then we go scooping beyond that this what we're experiencing, is a part of this massive, incomprehensible, huge just
Story.
amazing galaxies and story, and everything intertwines and connects together, and like this. It's beautiful, and so it's appealed to this aesthetic idea, and that happens for a reason. So the reason that you having bad things happen to you is so this thing
it's
can
so
be
that
what it is.
it's so that good things can come. It's basically saying that bad things happen so that good things can happen eventually.
Well, no. Here's the problem.
There's a lot of problems.
Well,
with
this is the problem because you can't even say that because, for example, let's say
There's not even necessarily good things for you, but as a whole, so that good things can
you can't even say that.
perfection.
You can't even say
so that we can be a cog in the great perfect gear.
Is the universe good or bad? Like if
It's
you,
indifferent.
if
I
you-
would say the universe is completely indifferent.
No, not the universe itself as an entity. I mean, it's
just
the
the
summation
fact that the
of
universe
of
exists.
its moral facets.
Well, I wouldn't say that the universe is moral.
No, that's not what I'm saying either. Let's say that there is a morality. Okay, I think we've talked about this.
Oh yeah. You and your objective morality, which I completely disagree with.
Well, in either case, we can say that there are things that are good and bad. You would agree?
Okay.
Cool. So there's things that are good and bad. If we take all the good and bad things in the entirety of the universe, aliens on planet Moog are having a genocide that's bad, and then Obama got elected. That's nice. And then Obama. Anyways, and then I don't know. There's other things going on. Earthworms are evolving. That's okay, I guess. And so we take all this and we take it all up and we add it up. What is leading us to believe that the universe inherently is going to be containing more things that are good than bad, or even neutral? Why would it balance out? We have no reason to believe it would balance out either. If anything, if you walk around, it seems that more bad things
Right.
happen than good things.
Well, it also depends completely on your perspective, but I also think this is getting slightly beside the original point. It's saying that
Well, the point is,
right. Well, like what you're saying is like we have no reason to believe that the universe has an end in mind, a definite end or like a goal to be reached or like some kind of
and even if it did,
some kind of state that it is reaching to, that is working for.
yeah, even if
maybe
it did,
like unconsciously
maybe it's
going
not
for
even better.
Like it may not be a good end, it may not be a bad end, it may
Exactly.
be completely different, or it may be completely up to chance. Like who knows?
Exactly.
And we can't really we have no place to say either way. The only one who could say either way would be God, right? Anyway, so if we're if we're assuming that like all bad things or really all things in general they happen, let's assume that they do happen towards a good end, right? That's kind of a disgrace in my opinion. That's kind of a disgrace in my opinion because you'll say if your grandma dies and then you can try to like rationalize by saying that like, well, your grandma's death helped motivate you to do better in school or something. I don't know. Like you can rationalize any way you want. You can find a reason. You can find a reason to like get out of bad things that are happening to you. If something bad happens to you, you can rationalize. You can rationalize your own goal. You can come up with something that was not already inherently there. Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Like you can create the goal in mind. You can come up with your own reasons. You can come up with your own motivation for good things to happen. You can use bad things as a motivating factor, but does not mean that those good things that come to you eventually happen because of the bad things that happened to you prior.
Fair. So then, consensus?
My conclusion is that sometimes crappy things just happen. That not everything happens for a reason. Everything has a reason, but things don't have a reason until they happen. Before they happen, there is no reason for them to happen.
Well,
like what happens tomorrow doesn't have a reason yet because it didn't happen yet. What does happen tomorrow, things will have a reason for why they unfolded the way they did, because there will be a string of circumstances that lead up to whatever unfolds.
Fair enough.
And that's why I hate stupid cliches.
Fair enough.
Okay.
All right. Well, this brings us to the next segment.
Well, play a song.
Well, we're gonna bring calls.
Okay.
Yeah. So hey, if you have a philosophical question, homework assignment, paper that you're struggling to write as of right now, and it's due tomorrow, or maybe the next day, or maybe in a week. Maybe you're just, working ahead of time. Good for you.
I can only assume that you have somebody in mind
Well, a couple people. But hey,
who philosophy papers that they're working on they want us to do the bulk of the work for.
it happens.
That's what we have the internet for.
Well, yeah. But hey, if you have any questions about philosophy, maybe you're a philosopher and just want to try and pick our brains. It's not nice, but do it. Give us a call.
Go for it.
Or a shout out, or a text, or a tweet.
Tweet? Neither of us have a Twitter.
Not yet. We're going to be making a Twitter. We will be making a philosophy Twitter.
Ugh.
Deal with it.
I'm not going to use it.
Well, all right. Anyways,
I'll put you in charge of the Twitter.
give us a call. We've got the number right here. The phone's sitting right in front of me. It's not ringing yet. The number is 1-616-331-2875. Hands are on the phone. 1-616-331-2875. And while the phones ring off the hook, we are going to be playing a song. Oh, what do we got? What do we got? Oh, we got Sigur Rós. Sigur Rós.
Sure, why not?
Sigur Rós. Sigur Rós.
Los.
Anyways, it's gobbledygook. Gook.
Okay.
All right, so here we go. Make sure you call. Please call. We get lonely in the studio. 1-616-331-2875.
All right, for the sake of garnering any more pathetic sympathy, just play a song.
Here we go.
Okay, and we are back. And I messed with the volume levels and I screwed it up. Oh well. Anyway, that was
David Bowie.
Young Americans.
Yeah.
So during our break, we had a caller, but they did not want to go on the air. But they brought up a very good point that I was being, admittedly, I am very cynical, particularly when it comes to that concept of that quote. Admittedly so. And the point they raise is that that there is a message behind that cliche that is supposed to not only inspire, but I guess teach people that that you can get good out of a bad situation. That's one message to be taken from that, and that's true. I'm not saying that's not the case. The main point that I was trying to make, that I may not have done a very good job of explaining, is the fact that it's simply a fallacy to say, like say, if A then B, B therefore A. That is a fallacy to say. That is an illogical statement. You cannot get A from B. I guess that does a better job of explaining that. I kind of wish I had touched on that earlier.
Yeah.
But that's the main point that I was trying to make. But I mean, it's a cliche for a reason, I guess.
Yeah. Right. Stuff happens.
Right. Anyway,
I
okay.
would like to pose a question to all of you, all of our lovely listeners.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think controls the parts of us that make decisions? What are you? Are you a soul, or are you material in nature?
Or are you an ego encapsulated within a brain with a body that just kind of dangles down below?
Oh, no, it would still be material. I'm talking just there's two things it can be right now, as far as I know. It can be material, or it can be this ghost in the machine, this soul. And which one is it? Science today, the greater, and it's upwards of 95% of neuroscientists think that we are entirely physical. Our brains control what we are, and we can model one day our consciousness entirely by understanding the web and pathways of neurons, this jungle of stuff up in our brains. And one day we can come to a complete and total understanding of what it means to be conscious through this. But I don't know, there's some problems with that. And I'm a physicalist. I don't have any other reason to believe that there's anything else that would be causing this. I don't see, if we had a soul, then how does it interact? How does it control our body? These questions need to be asked.
Right.
And there's no good answer.
Also, how do you clarify the difference between mind and soul? Because a lot of times the two can be used interchangeably. Or you could just say that the mind is essentially the conscious mind, whereas the soul includes everything that the mind embodies. But in addition to that, the unconscious mind, I guess you could say.
And there are these problems in determining, the nature of
Mm.
this. But I'd like to pose a thought experiment, one that I am borrowing from the neuroscientist David Eagleman. He wrote a book called Incognito. And if you have not read it, I would highly suggest doing so. It is absolutely fascinating.
Something tells me none of our listeners have read it.
Well, you never know.
I've not read it, but I would like to borrow it from you.
Okay, of course. It's an e-publication version. So, I got it for free.
Mhm.
So I might just post it on the Philosophy Talks page.
All right. Is it available through the library e-reserve?
No. But
Okay.
it's a like EPUB document.
Okay.
So like you could read it on your Kindle or your iPad or what have you, whatever reading software you have.
All right.
But yes, so I think I'll post that on our page, and so our readers can take a peek at it if they like and download it. But anyways, so there was this thought experiment that he published, and it goes something like this. Let's say that you are a tribesman in a undiscovered area of the world, and you're sitting there, and you're on your beach. And when you look up, what falls from the sky is a battery-powered radio. Now, you don't know that this is a battery-powered radio. You've never seen one in your entire life. All you've ever known is sticks and stones and huts and grass and the various things you can find out in the jungle. And so what do? Naturally, you're curious, and so you pick it up, and it's this box, and it appears to be made out of some kind of wood because you're familiar with wood, and then it seems to have a shiny, almost like resin-like substance on the front and on the back, and then it has this very unique substance you'd never seen before. It's almost like someone had taken like grass and woven it into a small basket and attached it to the front. And so naturally you're curious. And you poke around it a bit, and there's little things you can push down, and you push them again, and they pop back up. And there's little things you can turn back and forth. And you push one of these little things, and it goes down. And to your amazement and shock, and to an extent horror, out comes voices of people, and music, and sounds, and birds, and cougars, and all this kind of like crazy stuff's going on. And you're completely blown away.
What kind of radio station has
Well,
birds and cougars and
anything. It could be you push it and things come out. Noise comes out.
Right. I mean, heck, even if it's just static, I mean that would be
Shocking as well.
shocking enough. Yeah.
So you push it, and out comes. Let's say it's whale radio. And so out comes Bill's beautiful voice booming over the radio, and you drop it on the sand in surprise and horror, and you go, "Egads, what's going on?" And so you pick up this radio again, and you pick it apart, and you see in the back, and you unscrew the back panel, and inside is this nest of like little snakes, little metal snakes. And so you're playing with these little metal snakes, and you unplug, and you pull a green one, and the voices stop. And you go, "Oh my," and you push it back in, and the voices come back on again, and you turn one of the knobs, and the voices change. There's something else. And maybe it's Garrison Keillor at Perry Home Companion. And it's a great show, by the way. And so maybe you should play along with this. You go, "Whoa, this is amazing!" And so you develop a science to try and understand what this radio is like. And so you begin doing problem-solving experiments on the nature of the radio and how the radio interacts and things along those lines. And eventually, your tribe, having taken fascination in you and your science and the radio, come to you and say, "What can your science tell us about this thing, this magic talk box?" And you say, "Well, I have determined that I can change the voices that come out of the radio by just changing the wires and the knobs on the radio. And so, clearly, the voices must be from inside the radio, because I can change the properties of the radio. Therefore, the voices are contained within the radio, because I can change them by changing the material things of the radio." And so, in essence, you become a radio materialist.
A radio surgeon.
Effectively.
But there is a problem there.
Oh, what is the problem, Bill?
Where do the signals come from?
But you
They
don't
go-
know about signals. You have no means of, even if someone no one would hypothesize that. They would have no reason to, and they have no means of their technology. has no
assuming that
means of
they have
determining
this
that.
limited knowledge. Okay.
Yeah,
So
they would never know.
in order to relate it with the mind, we're saying that we are assuming that the consciousness comes from within our brain.
Yeah, well, think
from within
about
our body.
The analogy works perfectly. So when we take a look at our brain,
Not perfectly in a literal sense, because as we know, in an actual radio, the signal is broadcast to the radio and then it picks it up and then broadcasts.
we
So
would
like
not
the
we would not know that if we had no knowledge of radio waves, of this non-material thing.
Okay.
That we can interact with. We have no means. We have at this point if we are this person, this tribal person, this tribal scientist, this tribal radio scientist. We have no reason to think of radio waves. We have no means of testing for radio waves. Our technology is not capable of doing that. So we have to be radio materialists. We have no other means of explaining it. So let's go back to the brain. If you were looking at today, you're a neuroscientist. You're looking at the brain and you're chipping it apart, and it becomes obvious after a point in time that we can change consciousness and thoughts and etc.
by altering the physical components of the brain.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly.
But there's a problem.
What if we're missing something?
What if we simply have limited, just as the tribesman has limited knowledge of how the radio works, he has limited knowledge. He's unaware of the fact that signals are being broadcast through the radio. We could admittedly have limited knowledge as to where consciousness is being derived from.
Yes.
Where our consciousness is originating from.
And here's the problem, because some of you might say, "Well, no, that's silly," because we show
that's what I'm saying. We have no reason to believe otherwise.
Yes.
But as with the radio, that's not in actuality the case.
No, exactly.
Okay.
And so, but we're locked in as a tribal person, as a radio materialist, and we're locked in today as neurosurgeons, as scientists, as philosophers who are empiricist philosophers. We're locked in as conscious materialists. There can't be a ghost in the machine because that doesn't make any sense. We have no means of interaction. That's silly. And so, of course, you can say, well, one day science will understand, and then it will show that there is no soul because there's no other reason to believe for it. Well, here's the problem, is that science is always doing that, isn't it? Now, some of you say, well, science can understand everything.
I was attempting to show what does not exist.
Yes. Simply,
can we really come to the point where we can prove that there is not a soul, even if we simply cannot find it?
How many billions?
You run into the problem of attempting to prove a negative.
Yeah.
Which, as you and I both know, you cannot do.
And we're trapped by the boundaries of fundamental purposes of science. And it's true. Science does have boundaries, does it not? Where there's things we definitely don't know. And it is true. Science is always on the verge of making new and great discoveries. And we're always promised by popular scientists that it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of weeks, months, years, decades, centuries until we stumble upon these great discoveries which will catapult man into the future. Because as you know, the more you understand in science, the more you learn, and the faster you're able to learn.
And as, our technology is increasing, getting better at an exponential rate.
Exactly. But is that sufficient? And is that sufficiently true? So
I have a fan out there.
It's hard to say.
So can our understanding of how the brain works, how the radio works, whatever, can it theoretically increase to infinity? Our understanding of, our knowledge of it theoretically increase to infinity without quite understanding it? You're saying how technology, how is getting better. We are learning more at an increasing rate. Eventually, it's got to cap off, right?
No, not even necessarily.
So you're saying it could, our understanding could get infinitely closer to a complete understanding of how consciousness works, for example.
Well, personally,
without quite understanding it.
I don't believe in the capability for absolute truth, which is bad.
So you're saying that that it does cap off then?
It doesn't even cap
Or
off. There's
it's
no
just-
infinitely closer. We're stumbling around in the dark in one direction as opposed to another.
So eventually we get to a point where we're constantly learning more but not getting any closer.
Who says we're learning anything?
Okay, so now you got me going in circles.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so
It's complicated, but then there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of epistemology, a lot of stuff. And
okay,
we can't
well,
cover that now.
okay, well, let's bring it back a bit. Okay, so how does it relate to as far as the discovery of where you can say the discovery of the soul, or we can call it the discovery of the origins of consciousness, where exactly our consciousness comes from. Because I mean, we can look at our brain, and we can see like what parts of the brain light up when we have certain thoughts. We can see like what parts are working when we're thinking or doing certain things.
I can
but we
eventually
can't
electrically scan a radio, and I can see what parts of the radio
right.
light up depending on the frequency it's on.
Exactly. But then at the same time, we can't quite pinpoint where that consciousness is coming from. Like, exactly what is it with that exact combination of atoms and particles constitute consciousness? I mean, if you really break everything down into the most simplest substance, everything is made up of, atoms, which is made up of electrons and protons and neutrons, which are made up of quarks, which are made up of even smaller fundamental particles that I don't know anything about. But if you break everything down, everything is, in a sense, completely identical. But then if you just arrange those things in a certain fashion, you get consciousness somehow.
Well, to wrap this up, all I want to say, without making any great epistemological claim or about the nature of epistemology, or even answering the question as to whether or not the soul exists, because I'm not gonna claim on one way or another. I'm saying that, to an extent, answers of consciousness and whether or not the soul exists, and to an extent even science, they must be taken as situated knowledge. They have to be understood as situated knowledge.
So
You
you
simply-
take it with a grain of salt.
For lack of a better term, yes. Etymologically speaking, yes, take it with a grain of salt. You're obligated to. And it's a lot more complicated than you would believe, and furthermore, that scientists would be willing to believe. Because you can't perform science if you are not able to approach problems in a problem-solving manner. And to problem solve, you have to focus.
Okay. So, say with the example of the radio. Okay, the person on the island who discovers the radio, he comes to the conclusion that the sounds that are made by the radio are originating within the radio, out of the wires and speakers and circuit boards, or
Well, that wouldn't be his first
whatever.
assumption, would it? His first assumption
That
would
wouldn't
be
be
it's
his
the voice. Would be the voice of the gods, isn't it?
Right. We would automatically come up with a supernatural reasoning, because that's what the brain does. If we do not have answers, we manufacture answers
Sure.
to questions that are beyond us.
And they're often supernatural.
Oftentimes, yes. And then as we learn more about the way the world works through reason and science, we can come up with more logically sound answers. Right?
Yeah.
But then, let's say with the radio, he comes to the conclusion that the sound is coming out of, the wires and the speakers and all that. But then, obviously that's not ultimately where it's coming from. Does he have any cause to ask the question of maybe the radio waves are coming from somewhere else? Maybe,
Well,
what
he doesn't know about radio waves, remember?
Okay, yeah, I understand that. But what would lead him to ask the question, or ponder the possibility of maybe these sounds are coming from waves that are being broadcast from far away, which is in fact the true case, but he has no reason to believe that based on his knowledge.
No, we have.
Is there anything that could lead him to believe that, without just pure speculation?
I don't think anything else, unless maybe he was performing some kind of math and something else, and stumbled upon a theory that could only be explained, or a phenomenon that could only be explained by radio waves. But at that point, the technology for that culture is so unadvanced that it'd be
Right.
a long time before I'd be able to figure that out. And maybe it's the same as true of a soul, presupposing it exists.
Right, and a discovery like that would be, it would be groundbreaking, even like in one person society, but it would still be groundbreaking nonetheless. That would be, I mean, that wouldn't just take determination and science and know-how and intellect and whatever. That would take probably a wild imagination, honestly. That's why like we romanticize great scientists like Einstein, because not only was he a genius, but he also had a brilliant imagination.
Well,
that's why we like to romanticize people like that, and why we find inspiration in there, because anybody can have a imagination, even if we don't have an IQ of Einstein.
to a certain extent, many of these people were brilliant, but there's lots of other brilliant people who came up with theories, and they were discounted as crackpot theories, and their brilliance was never exemplified. So luck as well, I suppose, plays into that.
Mm-hmm.
So just pure happenstance.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes scientists are just were born in the wrong time period.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's what that segment is about. So
Fun time.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on.
And as we always do, the conclusion that we always come to is, I don't know.
No, not always.
Well,
Sometimes we have
well, I mean, more often than not, we always come to a conclusion that leaves us with more questions than answers. But
well, you know what we're gonna have right now? We're gonna have ourselves a good old-fashioned conclusion after this segment, and it's gonna be pretty firm conclusions.
yay, ethics!
All right. Yep.
You can actually come up with an answer
Maybe.
in ethics.
No, not always.
Okay.
A lot of times not. But anyways,
oftentimes.
here probably, maybe,
Okay.
most likely, hopefully. Anyways,
Song time.
you don't want to just go right into it?
You can play one song. Play a short one.
No. Oh, Depeche Mode. Here we go. Depeche Mode. Just can't get enough of philosophy.
Take care of those quote lesser beings, less intelligent beings.
You're jumping ahead.
Like, okay.
Because again, not yet. Initially, let's look at this just like a bare blank slate page. Because I'm not gonna lie, I don't know where this conversation ends tonight. I don't know what side I'm gonna be arguing on.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go where the logic dictates.
Okay.
So, looking at it right now, without starting to go in depth at all, I'm a social contractarian. So I believe, in a nutshell, that ethics is brought about by this unspoken agreement of societies and of mankind in general, whenever we interact, to not do things to each other to allow society to exist. So don't kill, don't steal, etc. And potentially, and arguably, to do things necessarily for each other. So say to give money to the government to allow for the protection of certain things, and to allow for example, healthcare is something I support. I think that's implicit within a greater social contract, but at its basic level, the most basic fundamental social contract requires do not kill, do not steal, do not attack me or whatever, respect my rights, and we can model that by saying like Constitution, whatever.
Mm.
But there's even beyond that, like in third world countries where like stuff is hitting the fan, there is still a basic social contract between groups. And what's the problem with that I can foresee us coming up against in this argument or this discussion? How does the social contract, which is the creator of morality, the divinator of morality, how does that explain why we should clean up the environment to a great degree or be sustainable, or more importantly, to worry about other organisms and animal rights and what have you? But let's just focus on sustainability here, so we don't try and bite off more than we can chew.
Okay, well, I want to bring up a point then.
Okay.
And this is kind of spitballing here, but like when we're taking the social contract theory, right? That is necessary for a society's survival, right? or it's necessary for a society to function properly and thrive.
I'd say,
Correct.
me and Hobbes would say function, period.
Okay, to function, period.
Yeah.
Right. But now you have to factor in that what other things are necessary for a society to function
Beyond social contract.
beyond social contract. Yes. And these other things, I would later on argue that they would be grouped in under an umbrella social contract theory. I guess you could say.
Maybe.
But
Well,
but
let's see
anyway,
where we
I'm
get
I'm
first.
jumping ahead. I'm jumping ahead. But okay, like what other things would be necessary for a society to exist outside of social contract?
Okay. Well, I suppose
Outside of our, like our ethics pertaining to one another.
I'd say a food source for the people of society. I don't know, maybe shelter of some kind or clothing, some means to protect themselves from unpleasant elements. And then, let's see, what about, oh, well, food, drink, shelter. I can't think of anything else that would be
Right.
more important than those.
All of these things that that essentially like come from the earth, that we don't create, things that we necessarily must take from the earth in order to exist, in order for our society to exist,
Sure.
right? Land, food, water, shelter, what have you. So because it is necessary for a social contract to exist in order for society to function,
Yes.
and it's necessary for all these other things to exist
Yes.
in order for our society to function properly.
Yes.
So our social contract theory dictates that is where our foundation of ethics for treating one another properly in order for society as a whole to flourish, right? That is where we get our foundations of the ethics of like treating each other, treating one another well enough, helping each other in need, and not bringing harm to one another, right? Because it is necessary for a collection of individuals to survive in order for the society to survive.
Social contracts and these additional things.
So what I'm saying is that that same obligation, the same reason that we are obligated to
Not kill each other.
to not kill each other, not only to not bring harm to one another, but it is implied that it would be that we have an obligation to help one another when possible in order to help society as a whole. Same way we should extend.
Not necessarily.
What? Okay,
Not
okay, okay,
necessarily,
okay,
not necessarily.
okay. That may be jumping ahead, but at the very least, we have an obligation not to bring harm to one another in order for society to benefit, to flourish, to survive. In the same way,
Well,
we have an obligation not to bring harm to all of these other things that are necessary for society to be functional,
Okay, well,
such as our air, water, food, land. That same obligation to not bring harm to one another extends to those things.
You're gonna have to lay this out piece by piece. I'm looking for a straight up logical argument here. Give me some analytical stuff.
Okay. Well, where's the hole in my argument here?
Okay. Well, I'm saying.
And in the same way that at a most fundamental level, humans, we're social creatures. Therefore, we have evolved to be social creatures. We've evolved morality to, at the very least, not bring harm to one another. Like, I know that it is wrong to kill you because it would harm our society
Okay.
as a whole,
not
right?
even as harm our society.
Well,
Because
I'm just saying, at a most fundamental level,
not even then.
but, we know it's wrong to kill one another because it would bring harm to the whole.
Bring harm to you.
Okay. It would bring harm. It would bring harm to me, and by extension, it would bring harm to the whole.
That's
But
why we sign social contracts.
okay.
Sign in air
Right.
quotes.
It implies social contract. Okay, so we'll say I don't harm you because it would not be beneficial to myself. It would bring harm to myself
Yes.
by extension.
Yes.
In the same way, if I dump a bunch of poison in a lake that I drink out of, it would bring harm to myself.
Yes.
Therefore, I do not want to dump poison in that lake.
Well,
but
also,
it doesn't just end there, right? because like as you know, like I'm not just not killing somebody because I'm afraid of bringing harm to myself. There's more to it. There's more to morality than fear of punishment, than
Maybe,
fear
maybe
of fear of negative
Maybe, maybe not.
consequences.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not.
Okay.
Ding ding ding.
Okay.
Ding, 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 ding.
You have to present an argument then. I'm saying that like there is more that we have evolved. I'm arguing that we have evolved an instinct against harming the whole.
Why? And have we? And even if we have, 'cause
I'm arguing
what happens-
like it's not absolute.
remember naturalistic fallacy. If we evolve an instinct to not harm the whole, it doesn't necessarily make it good to follow that instinct. Because evolution doesn't make moral choices. So we're hitting a snag here.
Okay.
So think of it like this: social contract exists to protect the individual. That's why yeah. Because let's say
we agree to the social contract
implicitly
for
our own sake.
our own sake, but the social contract itself exists for the benefit of the whole.
I would disagree. I would say there's a subtle nuance there.
Okay.
I'd say the subtle nuance is not that it exists for the whole, but rather it creates the whole by existing for the individual.
Well, I'm a believer in organic social theory. Okay. Saying that like each individuals, they play a part as a whole. Like society as a whole is like a living organism, right? And each individual person plays a role in the functioning of that living organism in the same way that we have separate organs that perform different functions, and we have different cells or groups of cells, different tissues that perform different jobs, and they each exist individually, and like each cell in our body wants to be alive, but it exists for the purpose of the functioning organism, right? Like it has to do its job properly in order for the organism as a whole to be healthy, right?
Okay, so I don't know if I want to see society as something like that. I still think we can save
Right.
society.
I mean, generally, people don't like to think of society that way because it's because a majority of people, they consider themselves individualists. Okay, they see themselves as being unique individuals, so self-determining individuals.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do and I don't, but I don't know if that's why I'd want to model a society. I still think we're able to save sustainability.
It's not a matter
through
of
social contract.
it's not a matter of modeling a society that way. It's just how societies naturally form.
I don't know.
That's what the argument is.
Honestly, I don't know.
Have you taken sociology?
Yeah.
Just 280, or have you taken any other ones?
I remember which ones I've taken. I've taken one at college, and I took the whole like School of Advanced things when I was.
I have an
in
article
school.
that you should read that.
Okay. Well, I might pick it apart.
Okay.
But we'll see.
Oh, I mean, yeah, like you can argue it either way, but
Okay.
anyway,
But so I think we can save sustainability using social contract. So again, we're at this problem that I see initially, that social contract exists to take care of me. That's why I signed it. And so I still want to do what's best for me because I'm a selfish being at heart, and morality to an extent, a broad sense, is good things that happen to me, and so I can feel bad about other things. But logically speaking, and in terms of like actual morality and required morality, there's things that I have to do and not do. And those things don't necessarily involve the environment. Like, for example, you said don't poison the lake where you drink with toxic
Right.
sludge.
admittedly,
Don't poop where you eat,
Yeah.
so to speak. But here's the problem. Let's say I am, I am Baron von Dumpalot, And I, Baron von Dump a Lot, am going to dump a lot in Lake Pristine. And I dump a lot in Lake Pristine.
Could just say Lake Erie.
No.
Yeah.
And I dump a lot in Lake Pristine. And Lake Pristine turns into Lake Full of Poop.
Okay.
And Lake Full of Poop is not a very nice place to be. But here's the good thing. I made a bucket of money dumping my dump a lot in Lake Poop, which was lake formerly known as Lake Pristine.
Is now Lake Poop.
No. And so, haha, you laughed at poop on a philosophy show.
Okay.
Oh, hi, Bill's mom, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
It's kind
Anyways,
of. She's asleep by now.
you never know.
No, I do know she's asleep by now.
Anyway, so I have made a bucket full of money, and I traverse my way
Who
over.
did you find to pay you to poop in a lake?
Maybe it wasn't poop. Maybe it was poop. Maybe it was the sewage company was looking for someone to get rid of all that poop, and they were like, "Hey, I'll
Okay.
take that poop. I'll poop."
Okay, regardless.
So-
Anyway, go on.
I made a bunch of money because polluting pays the polluter.
Mm-hmm.
That's an economical idea, and it's true. It's much more efficient and cheap to pollute.
Right.
And so I pollute, and I take all my money, and I go over to Nova Scotia, and it's all nice there. And for the rest of my life, I sit on a very expensive futon and drink mint water. Not mint water. That's for plebs. I drink truffle water because it's very expensive, and it's all clean and crisp and clear. And I live in a very nice house, and no harm has been done to me. I have not broken the social contract, and it's just now a very ugly lake that no one can use.
And all the inhabitants there are very sad.
Well, mine is screw 'em. That's not my. I'm not
Okay,
obligated to make them happy.
Okay,
you know.
now, let's say everybody in Nova Scotia knows that you did that now.
Sure.
And everybody in Nova Scotia says you are a bad person and you shouldn't have done that. Why do they say that?
Well, because
When it doesn't it no longer affects you because you're far away now.
Yeah.
It's benefited you. And let's say the fact that you brought all the money to Nova Scotia and you spent all that money and now the economy in Nova Scotia is flourishing because you brought all that poop money with you.
Sure.
Okay. But everybody in Nova Scotia still thinks you're a bad person now, even though they benefited from it too, and it brought no harm to them whatsoever.
well, in all reality,
Why-
you don't.
Wha-
There's
just
Republicans
hear me out,
everywhere.
hear it. Why do they feel that way?
Some of them feel that way.
Let's assume a lot of them do, and a lot of people are picketing outside your house right now. Okay, why do they feel that way?
Oh, because they like nature. They think it's pretty.
Come on, like you,
or-
like
no, it's true. I
we're
mean,
trying to figure out like why this is, like
Yes.
why, because like obviously those people felt that you had that what you did was unethical,
Yes.
right?
Sure.
And like if you ask anybody really, they would probably a vast majority of people would say that was an unethical thing to do.
Potentially, yes.
A majority of people would. Okay,
Sure.
Let's assume. Now, why would that be? Like, of course, they don't just randomly feel that way. There is a reason why they feel that was unethical. And what we're getting down to at hand is why that is unethical and why you should not have done it, even if it benefited you. Or let's say even if it benefited everybody. Let's say even if it benefited the people around Lake Pristine / Lake Poop. Okay, let's say they made a lot of money off there too.
In all reality, they probably did.
Okay, let's assume they did. But now it's a horribly disgusting, polluted lake,
Yes.
and all the wildlife is dying,
Yes.
and all the trees around there are all dying too.
Yes.
And everybody's rich,
Yes.
but everything's dying,
Yes.
and everybody hates you because everything is dying.
So what? So what
And
if they
everybody still says that was an unethical thing to do.
did? So
Well, that's what I'm saying. Why?
are they saying that?
Yes.
Like, we had a number of reasons.
That's what we're trying to get down to.
Just
Is
because
why is it
Hold on,
unethical
hold
to
on,
bring
hold on, hold
harm
on.
to the environment?
you're appealing to popularity here. Just because
And I'm asking
everyone,
why it's popular. I'm not like we're not just assuming that the world is just a bunch of hippies and they feel this way just because they like looking at pretty trees. No, that's not the case. There is a reason why people feel the way they do. There is a reason why people think that what you did was unethical.
yeah, but
There's-
it doesn't mean it's correct though. It does not mean it's correct.
Okay, so okay, then you're saying that people just feel that way just because people are random and don't.
I'm
really
saying
think
that it doesn't matter. I'm throwing that aside. Even if they have legitimate reasons, we have to examine the reasons and not the fact that a plurality of people think that what I'm doing is bad.
You're avoiding the question.
Not even.
You're avoiding the argument altogether. You're just saying like, well, they have no basis for feeling that way, or they have no logical basis for feeling that way.
I'm saying it doesn't matter if they do.
I'm asking you. Well, I'm asking you like there must be a reason for feeling that way. And it's not just a trend.
I'm calling appeal to popularity the fallacy.
Okay, let's hear it. You're arguing that it is a trend, a fad.
No, it doesn't
that
matter.
People feel the way they do. Well, as a matter of fact, like if you show anybody that lake, they would look at it and think, "Wow, that's a darn shame."
No, you're implying that, for example, so this is the definition of appeal fallacy, or an example rather. Most people approve or disapprove of X or have favorable emotions toward X, and therefore, because a plurality of people, all people, you could say, feel this way about X, then X is true or false, depending on the reaction to it.
Okay, you make a very good point there. I can see to that. You did bring up a valid point.
Okay.
And I guess the point that I was trying to make is that there, say like people naturally would get upset about that kind of situation. That would be considered a natural reaction. You could say, by popularity, it would be considered a natural reaction. But naturally, people would be disgusted by that kind of thing. They would be repulsed by it. They would consider that a bad thing to pollute that lake and destroy that ecosystem. But what does it say about human nature that we feel that way?
Well, again, it could be any number of things.
But then, conversely, there is that group of people who would see that they would see that the money that the economy they would see how the economy benefited from polluting that lake in whatever ways. All the money that we save from just dumping waste into that lake, and they would see all the money that they made. So they would consider that worth the hit. Say that the environment can take the hit. They're like, we own that land, so we can pollute that land. But other people are saying, well, that's not okay because that land doesn't really belong to you. That land belongs to everybody and everything.
Okay. Well, maybe not everything.
Again, say that
again, social.
Or say like, okay, I would say that land belongs to the Earth, not us. That we are just one species.
If Earth can't
who have the means to develop land and to control and to wipe out any other species if we so wished.
Here's your Bill. There's a problem here. If you are saying, where's morality come from then? If you're saying that it's immoral for us to pollute to the Earth, and you're saying there's not an objective morality, then what is morality? And so you're giving yourself a catch-22 here, where if you are willing, well, maybe not a catch-22, but because that's more circular. But if there's a problem though, where you are attempting to say that one, the Earth is capable of being a recipient of ethical consideration, but at the same time, the means by which we would be able to attain